Hello, welcome to this week's Junior Church everybody. I hope you're all doing okay. Now we've been looking the last couple of weeks at David and we've seen how God chose David to be the next king, even though he was the youngest, smallest one of the family and the least likely. God chose David the shepherd boy and told him that he would be the next king. But it wasn't quite time. We saw that King Saul was the king and that David would have to wait until God's timing brought him forward to be king. Now we saw last week how David put all his trust in God and how he defeated the giant Philistine Goliath. And he defeated him with just a stone and a slingshot because he trusted in God. Now David became good friends with King Saul's son Jonathan, and he was good and faithful to God while he waited to be king. Now King Saul, unfortunately, didn't like David. He was very, very jealous of David. He knew that God was with David. He knew that David was a good man. He knew that people liked David and he was good in battles. So he was that jealous that he even tried to kill him several times. And so poor David had to run away from Saul. Now today's verse, we're going to be looking at how David got the news that Saul and Jonathan had died in battle. Now how do you think David reacted? The person who was trying to kill him has died. How would you react if an enemy that had been trying to kill you had died and you just found out? What would you do in response? Well, we're going to look at today's passage and see. So we're going to be looking at 2 Samuel chapter 1, verses 1 to 17. Let's read. After Saul's death, David came back from his victory over the Amalekites and stayed in Ziklag for 2 days. The next day, a young man arrived from Saul's camp. To show his grief, he had torn his clothes and put dirt on his head. He went to David and bowed down in respect. David asked, "Where have you come from?" "I have escaped from the Israelite camp," he answered. "Tell me what happened," David said. "Our army ran away from the battle," he replied, "and many of our men were killed. Saul and his son Jonathan were also killed." "How do you know that Saul and Jonathan are dead?" David asked him. He answered, "I happened to be on Mount Gilboa, and I saw that Saul was leaning on his spear, and that the chariots and horsemen of the enemy were closing in. Then Saul turned round, saw me, and called to me, and I answered, 'Yes, sir.' He asked who I was. I told him I was an Amalekite. Then he said, 'Come here and kill me. I have been badly wounded, and I am about to die.' So I went up to him and did what he asked, because I knew that he would die anyway as soon as he fell. Then I took the crown from his head and the bracelet from his arm, and I brought them to you." David tore his clothes in sorrow, and all his men did the same. They were sad, they grieved and mourned, and fasted until evening for Saul and Jonathan, and for Israel and the people of the Lord, because so many had been killed in battle. David asked the young man who had brought him the news, "Where are you from?" He answered, "I am an Amalekite, but I live in your country." David asked him, "How is it that you dared to kill the Lord's chosen king?" And David called one of his men and said, "Kill this man." The man struck the Amalekite and wounded him. And David said to the Amalekites, "You brought this on yourself. You condemned yourself and you admitted that you killed the one whom the Lord chose to be king." So, we see David getting the news that David and Jonathan have been killed in battle. He doesn't celebrate like we might think he would. What does he do? He tears his clothes. He shows that he is sad and that he is grieved and that he is upset by the death of Jonathan and Saul and of all the other people that have died in the battle. And then he gets a bit angry, doesn't he? He is angry at the messenger because he finished the job, he killed Saul off. And he says, "How dare you kill God's anointed one?" And so he's very angry with that messenger. Now when we hear sad news, we can feel lots of different emotions too, just like David. We might feel upset, we might feel angry, we might feel confused. Now in 2 Samuel chapters 1 verses 17 to 27, we can read David's lament for Jonathan and Saul. And that is a sad song, a sad poem that David writes to pour out his emotions to God. And that helps him to deal with his emotions too. And we can share our feelings with family, with God, and with friends. In Psalm 56, David wrote that God collects our tears. David knew that God was always listening to him, and he cares about how he's feeling. And he cares about how we're feeling too. So if we're upset, angry, we don't know what to do with our emotions, the best thing to do is tell the Lord, give it all up to God. Why don't you join me in a little prayer now? So if you've got a cup, you can get a glass or a cup and get some water. You can do it at the sink if you want, but I've got a jug so I can do it here. Now, fill the cup with the water, nice and slowly. And as you fill in the cup, just think about all the sad things, all the difficult things, all the emotions that you're going through right now. And as you're pouring it out, tell God all about these feelings. Pour them out to the Lord. So you can say those things out loud, or you can say them in your head. It's okay, because God knows. And then once your cup is full, gently pour the water away. Again, you can do it down the sink. I'm just going to pour it back in my jug. But ask God to take away your tears. Ask God to comfort you. And ask God to be near you while you're going through these emotions. And ask God to help you deal with them too. And He will. Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you that you care about how we feel. Thank you for friends and family who are around us to support us in sad and difficult times. Help us, Lord, to be good friends to others too, to listen when they share feelings of sad and grief, and offer support and love to them all. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Now there's lots of good activities to do this week as well if you have a look at the sheet. So send them in if you want, and I will gladly have a look at them. See you next week.